Hi from the workshop. Since we moved here, I spray painted a lot. Here are 10 tips that will help you get better results immediately. Number 1, get a pistol grip. They only cost 2 or 3 euros, and the way they work is you take your spray can, simply slide the grip onto the can, and instead of depressing the button with your thumb, you can hold the can like so and use 4 fingers. It's much more comfortable, especially if you spray paint for longer periods of time, your thumb will start to hurt. Pistol grip, excellent invention. Number 2, protect yourself. Always wear glasses, especially if you have your eyes or your head very close to the surface you're painting. Gloves are a must, but the most important piece of protection equipment is a gas mask. You can get them very cheap on Amazon. The filter consists of 2 parts. This here needs to be changed regularly. When you use it, you will see that it catches some paint. And this part here works for quite a while. It's a small investment, but it makes spray painting so much safer and more enjoyable. No more coughing the next morning. Number 3, prepare your workplace. Make sure that the object you're going to paint is accessible from all sides, that you can easily flip it during the painting process, and lay out a cloth. Make sure you don't get any color on spots where you don't want it. Preparing the wood. These steps completely depend on the type of material you are planning to spray. For example, this piece of furniture here has a sealed surface, no need to do anything. You simply can start to paint it. For natural wood, on the other hand, wood that isn't sealed, it's obviously important that first you make sure there is no dirt, no grease, and that the wood is thoroughly dry. Depending on the roughness of the surface, you want to start working with a rougher sandpaper, with a coarse sandpaper, and then work your way up to a 600, 800 grit until you get a really smooth surface. Of course, electrical grinders are very helpful here. If the wood you are planning to spray paint has a very porous surface, it's a good idea to use a sanding sealant, a sanding sealer, so-called primer, before you start the actual painting process. Number 5, choose the right type of paint. For outdoor spray paint jobs, always use acrylic color, never water-based colors. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of water-based spray paint. High gloss or matte, that is a question of personal taste. I made it a habit to always have enough cans of the colors I need most, because it's like a law of spray painting. You always need more color than you thought. I always paint out here. So before we start, it's super important to thoroughly shake the can. Make sure you shake it for at least 1 or better 2 minutes. Really does make a huge difference, because the colors and the other substances need to mix thoroughly in order for us to get a homogeneous surface later on. Also, when you're spray painting outside, make sure you don't do it in direct sunlight and there's no wind. In other words, perfect conditions right now. And now for the most important part, the actual spraying technique. Before we start spraying the object we actually want to paint, it's always a good idea to use a little piece of the same material, just in order to get used to the color flow and the texture. Figure out if everything is in order, and then when you go like, yes, it's time to start spray painting our actual artifact. Major mistake that most beginners make is that they are trying to cover the object in one go. Now if you look at this wood, this is not a homogeneous surface. We have these lines, there are darker and brighter areas. So here we have some spots where the tree grew branches. So what's going to happen when I now apply the first layer is it's not homogeneously blue, but the texture of the wood is still shining through. If you now go and just put on more color, exaggerate a little, you will get too much color and drops will start to form. This is exactly what we don't want. What you do instead is layer properly. So in other words, make it a habit to move your can evenly across the surface. S-shaped movements or eights work really well, just like so. And the trick is, you don't really pay attention to the result. It will not be homogeneous. Some spots will instantly become blue, other spots the wood will shine through a lot more. Also with these natural wood surfaces, it's often a good idea to paint from two different directions, because actually it's not a flat but a 3D surface. And that's more than enough for the first coating. So this is not a great result. And what we're going to do now is let this dry with acrylic colors. That's a matter of 10 minutes. And then when our first layer is dry, we are going to apply the second layer in exactly the same fashion. I applied 2 more layers, and as you can see, we're getting there. You know, how many layers, how many coatings does wood require? It depends on how fine you sand it. It also depends on the type of the wood, but usually something between 3 and 6 layers will definitely do the trick. It's not about getting as much color as possible onto our surface in one go. Patience. Patience is the key to success, and multiple coatings. If you need to spray paint your objects on all sides, let it dry and then flip it around and do the other side. Of course, it's also possible to paint vertical surfaces, but especially if you're new to spray painting, I think it's easiest to coat even horizontal surfaces. And especially with these small areas here, do the same, apply even light coatings, do it multiple times. Again, if I try to do it in one go, all this will get me is color drops, and we don't want those. Tip number 8, if you spray paint store-bought furniture, whenever possible, do the painting before assembling the furniture. Take the individual boards, coat them as often as you have to, let them dry thoroughly overnight. It's much easier that way. Worst case scenario, lots of paint drops. What can you do? Well, there's no use in taking a cloth. In such cases, simply let everything dry thoroughly overnight and then use some fine sanding paper the next day to remove the excess color and start again from square one. Final tip, and it's an optional one, for a specifically shiny look, use a top coating, but that's not a must. And of course, as always, a good result depends on your expectations. In some cases, you might want a completely homogeneous, only blue surface. In most cases, I really like it when the texture of the wood is shining through a little bit. You decide, basically depends on the number of coatings. Have you ever spray painted any furniture?